Hi everyone, my name is Umama Bashir and I'm currently a medical student at King's College London. This is a highly requested video on how you can get an A star for A-level psychology based on what I did to get an A star in A-level psychology. A-level psychology is very content based. It's basically one of the most content based A-level subjects out there, which means you need to memorize the content efficiently because you don't have enough time. But let's get started with the first step. Before I get into this step, if you've watched the video on A-level biology, you can skip this step because this is kind of the same step as well. But the first thing I did was understand the content. As obvious as it seems, a lot of people walk out of their psychology lessons not understanding the content. They don't understand the evaluation points, they don't understand the AO1, they just assume that they can just leave the lesson and just learn it later. But it's so important to understand the content because it makes it so much easier to learn that content and answer questions. After each lesson, I would ensure that I understand every aspect of the content that we've covered in that lesson. So the evaluation points, the AO1 points, the definitions. If I didn't understand the content, I would go and ask the teacher. At the end of the day, guys, the teachers are there for a reason. So ask as many questions as you want. You can't get those really top grades without understanding the content and just purely based on memorization of content that you don't even know the meaning of. Don't just learn complicated and chunky evaluation points just on face value. Understand why that works in evaluation point because that's going to help you remember the content. For example, a lot of evaluation points talk about standardization as a strength of a particular experiment. So go ahead and learn what standardization means. Don't just learn, oh, standardization is a strength. Learn why it's a strength. Once you actually understand the content, I promise you, applying it in exam questions is going to be so much easier. Revision will also be easier because then you're not going back and relearning the content. You're going back and just reminding yourself of the content. Let's get on to how I efficiently memorized all the content in A-level psychology. I completely ditched all the passive revision techniques and used active recall techniques. Now the difference between passive recall and active recall is active recall revision techniques actually engage your brain, and there's a lot of research that has highlighted the usefulness of them in learning and memorizing content. Examples of passive recall techniques that I completely ditched was making lots of notes and highlighting them, making them look pretty, because all of that was really useless. Let's go ahead with the active recall techniques I used. The first thing I did was make mini questions on each topic and put them on flashcards. You can do them on online flashcards or physical flashcards. And for psychology, I did Quizlet flashcards, but to be honest, they're both the same. I actually have my Quizlet flashcards with me, and this was my flashcards for biopsychology, the localization topic. The question would say, what is localization? And then when you click it, the answer's right there. I would have mini questions like this for the AO1. I would also make these mini questions for each evaluation point, for each subtopic. For example, limitation of the localization theory in terms of the methodology, and then I would just put key points. So over-reliance of postpartum, small samples used, lack population validity, just key points. I wouldn't really explain anything for this part of my revision because this was more just the memorization. Here's another example. This is asking for the evidence against localization, and then we have a key point. Do the same for the strength. So you have strength of localization, and then it's asking for pioneering evidence this time. Again, I would write the key points and I would basically test myself. So I would make these mini questions on every single aspect of each subtopic and each topic. So for example, all of these are flashcards for the biopsychology topic. There's 111 flashcards for me to go through, and it includes all the subtopics in biopsychology. So in terms of when you should be making these flashcards, ideally you should make it right after your lesson. Say for one lesson you guys are covering localization. After that lesson, straight away make mini questions on localization and carry on doing that until eventually, once you finish learning all the content, you just have these flashcards in time for your exams. However, if you haven't made these flashcards yet and you have an exam in, say, 2-3 months, make these flashcards in advance. So just sit down, look at all the topics that you're being assessed on in this mock exam, and just make flashcards in a day on every single topic. Try and go through these flashcards every week to prepare for the A-level exam, so you just don't forget the content as well, even if you don't have a mock exam to go through. If you're someone that prefers to make physical flashcards, you can also do this. This is an example for my biology revision. So I've made lots of mini questions. Now we've gone through how we can actually learn the content, learn the main aspects of the evaluation point. What we need to do now is be able to write a good evaluation point. Because in psychology, all the marks go to the evaluation point and how you write them. From these flashcards, you're going to know the main aspects of the evaluation point, but you're not going to know how to structure it into a good paragraph to get those high marks. And this is where the second technique comes in. So what I did was use a whiteboard technique where you look at your evaluation point, take a whiteboard and write down the evaluation point in your own words without looking. Then you look at the original evaluation point, compare what you've written and the evaluation point, wipe it off and rewrite it in your own words again, this time including the things that you've missed out, and continue doing that until you've included all the important aspects of the evaluation point in your paragraph with your own words. While you're doing this on the whiteboard in your own words, make sure you use the PO guide. I'm sure you've heard of it, and it's point, evidence, explain, evaluate and link. So I'll give you an example of what would be included in each section. So let's go with attachment, because I feel like everyone, including AS students, have gone through attachment so far. This is the evaluation point for cultural variations in attachment. So now a point would be that it has a high population validity, and the evidence would be there was a large sample size, there was nearly 2,000 children, and lots of different countries involved, there was individualistic and collectivist cultures involved. Go to the explain section. So then you can say the results are representative and can be generalized in wider areas. And then you elaborate basically, and you don't really need to elaborate, but if you want those top marks, I feel like it's really good to elaborate. And this is where you can kind of include like an opposing argument or some extra research for the same argument. And for my elaboration point for this, I included, however, care still needs to be taken when generalizing these results, because most of the studies were taken in the US. I gave the statistic over here, 18 out of 32, and only one was taken in China. Most of these studies were taken in individualistic cultures and very little in collectivist cultures. So obviously for my elaboration point, I included an opposing argument. And then you link, and you can link to the point, or you can wrap up everything and recap everything. My teacher used to like to replace this with R, so recap. So what I did was I recapped this. I said, therefore, these results are not as representative as they seem, and we cannot draw conclusions about collectivist cultures and cultures in areas such as China. Obviously, when you're writing this on the whiteboard, you're not going to write it like this. You're going to write into a proper paragraph, and you're going to carry on doing it until you get it right. Make sure you time yourself, give yourself 3 or 4 minutes so that you can get used to the actual time pressure in the exam. Also, add lots of key points so that they know that this work is from someone that studied psychology and not just some random person. So yeah, try to incorporate all of these things: qualitative methods, quantitative methods, ideographic approach. Now we've basically tackled the whole memorizing the content in psychology. We've done flashcards. We've also gone through the evaluation points and how to write them under time conditions. The next step is to tie all these together. Now what I'll do is do 16 markers on each subtopic that's going to be in the exam. If the exam included attachment and social influence, I do a 16 marker on types of conformity, conformity to social roles, explanations of obedience, etc. I do the same for attachment. I would do this under timed conditions to make sure that I'm really preparing myself for this exam. I would add in more information than necessary for the 16 markers. I would include as much AO1 as I can of that topic and all the evaluation points. Obviously, you don't need to do that for the exam at all. Please don't do this for the exam because you don't have enough time. But the reason I do it is because while this is helping me practice to write under time conditions, it's also helping me remember everything in that topic. When I'm doing the actual 16 markers in the exam, I know more than I need to, basically. Once I've done the 16 marker, I would then mark that 16 marker. And when I say mark it, I would just get a different coloured pen and write down anything important that I've missed or edit the evaluation points. And I would basically do it again if I need significant improvement. But other things I did to revise for my exams that really helped me was revise with a friend. And honestly, this really helped so much. We would basically both have the same handout, for example, the cultural variations in attachment, and we'd go in turns asking each other questions. For example, I would ask her, hey, explain to me what cultural variations in attachment are. And she'd tell me, without looking at the handout, differences in norms and values and child rearing styles in different cultures and how parents expect to behave. And then she'd ask me, what was the aim of Van Igenzone's experiment? We'd carry on asking these questions until we finished the whole handout. During this, if you get a question wrong, you'd read the answer and remember that for next time. Let me put into perspective everything I said. Say you have an exam in 2 to 3 months on social influence, memory, attachment. What you need to do is straight away sit down and look at the content that's in the exam and immediately start making those flashcards on Quizlet or even physical flashcards on each little topic that's on the exam. This isn't going to take you that long. It's probably going to take you 2-3 days, a week max. Once you've made these flashcards, religiously go through these flashcards until you're basically understanding and remembering everything in the flashcards. And once you've done that, start doing the 16 markers on each topic. Start with the topics that you don't understand the most. Once you've done the 16 markers and the flashcards, start doing topic-based questions. Once you've done these topic-based questions, maybe a week before the exam, you can start with the actual full exam papers. Mark that exam paper in a different color. Go back and re-memorize everything that you've gotten wrong. Please guys, if you get something wrong and you don't understand why you got it wrong, you need help, go and ask your teachers. Until you're satisfied with your marking and you understand why you got the things that you got wrong, then you can move on to the next paper. With research methods, the only thing I do different is I wouldn't really do the 16 markers. I would jump straight into lots and lots of practice questions once I've gone through the flashcards and remember all the content. As you can see, I've got limitations of participant observations, what is a repeated measures design. Finally, I just want to emphasize, make the most of the resources that the college gives you. I know that my college used to give us a lot of extra worksheets. And with that, I would like to thank you guys for watching this video. If you have any questions on A-level psychology, A-level chemistry, A-level biology, and any other A-level, please leave them below. In addition, if you have any questions on applying to university, getting into medical school, and the whole university application process, please let me know. If you have specific aspects of psychology that you're struggling on, please let me know. Thank you. Bye.